Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Dave Dobbs here. It's the it's January the 7th, 2020. So I guess Happy New Year, first of all. I'm in a funny old space today. I really am. You can imagine we're getting very close to this thing, and I was expecting to see much bigger earthquakes around about now. And you know, in the lead up to this full moon. Really, I don't know. You know, we have to look at what happened in the last year. You know, I've got this on this this picture of what I have here as the sun with 4 planets which you can't see orbiting around planet X, and there you have the inner one going around planet X. The first one will be Jupiter, the second one will be Saturn, and the third one is Uranus, which we now know is, you know, if our model is correct, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto and Eris we can delete. And I've gone through that, but I wanted to talk a little bit about angles of intention, and it's I don't know what the correct terminology in astronomics is. You know, we have the concept of a planet moving around and around, say Jupiter moving around and around and around here, planet X. We could see its angle intention as possibly going right round, but in fact we know that's not the case. It is moving in one specific direction, and it is trapped in planet X's gravity field, so it can't escape. So it's always going in one direction. And, you know, one of the things I've been trying to explore is the direction planet X is moving and the direction that our sun is ultimately moving, and ultimately the direction our Earth is also moving within the solar system or within the galaxy, within the universe, you know. And so let's just, you know, angles of intention, you know, because where have I stopped it here on this model? Let's just move this over here. I'm talking about you know, I'm suggesting, and this model is an attempt to move us in the right direction, but it's not by no means correct yet, because just for the fact that the angle of planet X is coming up here implies the angle of intention is going straight up here, and this is far from the truth as we really understand, because basically in this model I've incorporated the original mechanics of my orbital mechanics when I started this model, which, as I say, was based on the way in which Nassim Haramein showed us planets move around a center, a gravitational center, and he gave us this notion that the sun, the Earth didn't orbit the sun, the Earth orbit whatever the sun was orbiting. So he gave us this spiraling motion of an Earth chasing along behind a sun, and therefore orbiting whatever the sun is orbiting. Now, the logic is that 1939 to here, 2020, the midway point will be planet X's angle of intention. It will be coming out whichever way that crosses. Now, what it means is, if you can understand this, and all of you out there, this is really where I'm at to, and this is because we're finally triangulating this aspect, because we finally have this point, and we have this point, and we have the 1986 point here. See, these are the official positions of Jupiter. And these official positions of Jupiter don't correlate to where Jupiter really is, because that's Jupiter, that's the official Copernicus idea of where Jupiter is to make this model work here. That's the Copernicus model, and I'm showing you that to bring you into an understanding, but that is not correct, because that is not where Jupiter is, clearly, because of the experience we've had, the model that we're being given, all these different sightings that we get of Jupiter. That's why they create, like I say, you know, Uranus, and then Neptune, and then Pluto, and now Eris, because of these points. But we can see where Jupiter is in a night sky according to where the official place is supposed to be. But every now and then, because we get this other aspect that comes in when it shouldn't come in, we obviously we rename it. So we are left in this quagmire. But I guess really I've got to, even though I'm not really moving you that much further forward, for those of you who are getting the gist of what I'm trying to give you here, that this central point is, between the two, is the angle of intention of planet X. And it seems it doesn't necessarily depict the angle of intention, I'm of a mind, of our sun, because our sun could have been caught up, even though it could have been heading away, it could have been caught up in planet X's gravitational field, and though it's heading off in one direction, it gets pulled into the gravity of planet X, even though it's got its own angle of intention. I'm so sorry that that's still so vague. But for those of you that are getting into the real nitty-gritty of the orbital mechanics, you can see how my mind is trying to work here, and what I'm trying to give you here is, I can't give you the exact answer of this because I still truly do not know. But why I brought you to this place is that we are all in the same place. The whole reason I wrote Laughing Gas was to work out what the fundamental underlying intention, what were the underlying angles of intention by that which clearly is subverting this earth right now. And I'm so sorry that was so vague. It was so appropriate that I take you into that whole space, because the whole purpose of, like I say, of Laughing Gas. And so let me now take you through this bit I wrote in Laughing Gas, which tells you everything that is happening now exactly. And I mean, it's just, it was so odd that I kind of like, it's got swearing in it, so I'm gonna F. I'll just effing and but you'll be able to see the swear words. I'm not gonna blank those out, but I know that Alex Lujan watches some of my videos, and he doesn't like any form of cussing in the videos, and so to not offend, but it is literary, you know, it's a literal thing. It's not meant for kids or anything else like that, and so I will tick that in the box. It's not meant for kids, but it's a literal, you know. I'm just reading a passage here anyway. So you did though, Dobbs. You absolutely knew they were going to go down. You were convinced. Still, even if this stuff does make you psychic, I don't know if I could drink it, man. I mean, I wouldn't mind knowing the lottery numbers or something, but no, man, you've got it all wrong. It wasn't ayahuasca that told me the banks were going down. It was gold, or to be more precise, it was the impact of the gold price of Iran switching its oil trading from US dollars to euros in March 2006 that told me. It's that simple. And it wasn't just me. So many people were talking about the impact on the US and global economies if that ever happened. Rob Newman, the comedian from Newman and Baddiel, was the man of the moment there. He had it sussed. Kick the legs out from under the table and the table falls. Check him out online. The dude tells it how it is. Interjection there, the video that you want to watch there is called The History of Oil. I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal. You might have seen it already. It was actually produced by the BBC, unbelievably. You wouldn't have thought they would have ever touched or got involved with that. Maybe they weren't fully aware of the situation. I don't know, but yeah, the BBC produce it. But then Rob Newman is quite a outspoken speaker, coming in from a kind of comedian aspect. You know, very much a comedian, but oh my god, just full of absolute gunning all the way through. Really kind of gives you the lowdown and shows you how this thing's going to play out. Okay, so there were endless blogs going up saying that Iran would make the switch and that it would kick off if they did, and they did it. And everything inside me screamed out to check the gold prices to see if this thing really did have the density I was assuming it really had. The graph spells it out. And all the complex bullshit that will be thrown at you by the economists, there it is written in gold, rocketing at exactly the same time as Iran switched. It suddenly became blindingly clear what the big boys up top were really thinking. Not what they were saying, mind, or more specifically for the British newspapers, what they weren't saying, other than the normal, the weather's going to be shit. I'm not sure of the percentage of the British population that actually believe that if it's not in the papers, then it's not true. But that was the iceberg that grazed down the side of the world economy and expressed what was really going on in the big boys' heads. It was going off the Richter scale, man. They were shitting brick. The single most important thing propping up the US economy, the thing that America and Britain had fought so hard to maintain for nearly a century, was in danger of falling apart. The monopoly on the sale of oil in US dollars, the fabled petrodollar. Germany had tried to muscle in on it and paid the ultimate price twice. And then it was Iraq's turn, and we all know what happened there. What most people don't know is what the real reason for dumping all the nuclear waste on Iraq. Interjection there, we're talking about the depleted uranium from all the depleted uranium bomb shells that Britain and America kind of like rained down on Iraq. It was punishment for Saddam's attempt to thwart the supremacy of the US dollar. But then in March 2006, just when George W. thought he'd finally shown those pesky ragheads who was boss, suddenly the Iranians do the same thing legally and legitimately right under the noses of UK PLC and the US of A. You see, Europe was finally muscling in on the business as Iran was sharing the wealth and saying F you to Britain and America, where up until that point, oil could only be traded in US dollars via New York or London. And why not? Think about it. Nearly 30 billion barrels of oil being burnt every year, all of it traded in US dollars, just to offset America's debt repayments. So along comes the latest threat that Iran couldn't be trusted with nuclear energy, right after we just dumped loads of depleted uranium along its borders. Personally, I think it was the last straw, the ultimate insult that caused the Iranians to pull the ripcord. What else but a desert storm of depleted uranium dust from all our armaments would make a business partner terminate relations so catastrophically? Come on, man, it was the lowest form of racial cleansing ever used in the history of genocide. There has never been a worse crime committed on the face of the globe. Never. To the masses, it's just another conspiracy tale that they cannot allow themselves to believe that the British government couldn't have done that, even though the evidence is utterly staggering with birth defects and radiation-related diseases going off the radar. No, man, that weren't shamanism, ayahuasca, or clairvoyance, Bolivar. That was good old-fashioned common sense, man. Iran dumping the petrodollar was the equivalent to the gash down the side of the Titanic, twisting the myth of the unsinkable ship into a million broken tales. But the truth was right there, written in gold. Just look at the gold prices in March 2006 and see how they rise from that point like never before. There had to be a cause for that. Just the fundamental stories of how history repeats itself over and over. You see, the greatest threat to the US dollar and the Fed is not just Iran. It's any large enough currency that can challenge the Fed. What, like the euro? Agent 6 replies. Exactly. Two birds that the Fed wants gone forever and which it can take out with one stone if it can get its war off the ground. But it needs a Trojan horse to get into Europe and smash it. Britain, right?
Yeah, people have actually started to think that Britain could be independent. The last time we experienced that was in the Second World War, when we distanced ourselves from Europe with our alliance with the US. And that's when we launched the whole Dig for Victory allotment campaign, when Heathrow was still the main market garden area for London and most houses had veg growing gardens. If we do that again, most of the country would be starving to death in less than a month. I reckon we need Europe more than they need us. And that's why I wanted to basically just come to that little conclusion there for this video. And you know, the way it ends is for me in Laughing Gas, the way it all concluded was when I finally had a council with this highest aspect of myself, God, great intelligence, whatever you want to see it, however you choose to see it. And I presented this. It told me I was going to write a book about all of this, and that it was an essential part of the process that I was seeing all of this. And it showed me this other world, and it showed me my fifth dimensional higher self. I had to go through a whole, like I say, I had to go through a whole death experience. And when I came out of that space, not on that particular vision, but the vision I had after, I was able to go straight into that world in the next time I did it. And that's where I had a whole process that took me to this place where I had a counsel with this highest aspect of myself, God, great intelligence, you know, the highest aspect of myself. I went into this place which I'm understanding is the fifth dimension, and from there I was taken into a guided meditation by a very dear friend that I know in this world, that I was clearly is existing in that world as well, and he hasn't died and gone over. So it was his high self that met me and took me through this guided meditation and took me up to another dimension where I was given this message. And remember, this was put together in 2008. You know, the bones of this was put together in 2008, 2009. And and it was by the end of 2010, the whole thing was the whole story was correct, and obviously needed a lot of work. And it was, the publishing began in kind of serial form, like doing chapter at a time, you know, and I started that in 2011, and then officially published it as a whole book on the solstice of 2012, which is when I wrote it to be ready for 2012, for the whole kind of like 2012 prophecy sort of thing. Because I was so of a mind that it was so massive what was happening, that was coming in. I truly didn't understand it. I just saw it as a massive wall. That's all I kept getting. That was the thing that kind of drove me. And when I was out there, the message was, you know, it was that you approach the wall and nothing gets past the wall that is of war. Throw your depleted uranium, throw all your nuclear waste, all your racism, all your hate, you will not get through. You will not budge it. You will not scratch the surface of this. Only peace will get you through. And but it said I had to invite them in, and I was always confused by that. I didn't know it was inviting us into the fifth dimension, or I didn't really understand it. And then when I started doing the writing thing, it revealed Mars to me, and that's where the whole Mars thing started, where I had to learn to do what I was doing on ayahuasca without anything, doing it as my mother and father do, doing it with my intention and dedication and work and intense study. And that's how I open the doors, having a whole practice. And that's the key to this, a practice, dedicating yourself to a practice, dedicating your intentions through a practice, is what those that work with this planet, work with people that dedicate themselves to the things that they are passionate about in such a way, and they can link with this, they can work with this. It's very difficult to work with half-heartedness and kind of half efforts and nearly efforts. You have to be absolute, because if they're going to give you their energy and their time, they're investing in you, and you become part of an integral plan, and your performance is everything in that. You will not realize you are the front line if you choose to work with that. And so only dedication will open that door. And your communication and communicating your intentions, that's why prayer is so important. So they have it in clear, almost like contract form, what your intentions are, that you've made it absolutely clear that if ever you turn around and say, I never asked for this, you say, you know, the first thing it said to me when I finally broke through, it said, David, understand you came to me. That's the first thing it said to me. You know, I said, is that you? You're there, aren't you? And it said, I've always been here. And he said, understand that you came to me, you knocked on my door, you had your line of inquiry. I only answer your questions. You may not like the answer to many of these questions, but I only answer your questions. It was just like, you know, and so it was like, and so everything that I try and relay is fundamentally, apart from my orbital mechanics, which I know I get enormous help with, and I feel like the guides and the gods is kind of there when I suddenly reach it, and they go, he's got it! You know, I've had it so many odd times, little bits of communication, nudging me this way, nudging me that way, and I'm just like, I know what you're trying to tell me, I don't get it. And you saw very much in that video, the video I've just made, you see very much of kind of the process of how I deliberate, and I have to get myself really, really close. Like you saw how I was doing, I was really revealing a big part of my own process of how I get to my, how I make my jumps. I push myself up without knowing the answers, and I nudge closer, and I lay all the bits out, and I do my half. I do my half where I do as much as I can to desperately try and understand the orbital mechanic. But it knows the places I'm weak, and it knows the places that I kind of need help. And I'll have that out, and I won't realize that the whole thing that's stopping me is this tiny little detail over here for whatever it is. And it will know that little detail, and know that if I subtly, and it will just answer that little detail or give me little clues to that little detail, and it will let me, and I'll be like, hang on. And it does this little, this, you know, it's this whole kind of beautiful process of moving forward this, you know, expanding this, you know, and it's like I say, I couldn't jump onto using the kind of modern concepts of orbital astronomics until I'd got a window on what was really going on, because I didn't trust any of it. You know, they're just fraught with so much lies and deception that you don't know which way to go. So you've got to kind of like, so you just got to go through, you just got to do it all. You got to do it all. You just got to keep number crunching, keep working with it, start at the beginning, and just do it all. Just do all the due diligence that comes with this. The lucky phone again. So I'm going to leave it there, lovely people. Thank you so much. Take care. All the best in the world. Bye-bye.